Welcome, beautiful souls. Based on some of the questions that were submitted, it looks like we're going to be diving into one of the most tender and kind of tangled threads in love, which is those power dynamics. Maybe for some of you, it might mean you're having that shrinking feeling in relationships, or maybe you're always trying to keep the peace. You're a big mediator. But whether it shows up through sex, money, silence, or emotional manipulation, it's that point when love becomes that power struggle, which makes both hearts suffer. And for others, it may mean you're questioning whether your relationship feels more like control than connection. There are so many ways to look at power plays. And the goal is to explore how to reclaim your truth, hold your boundaries, and still stay open to love, because real love doesn't require you to dim your light. And if you're tuning in live today, welcome. I'm super happy to have you here. Please drop your questions in the comments and I'll bump you up in queue. And if you're watching on replay, welcome. You can still comment or go to bethbell.me/question and I'll answer it next week. And if you haven't already discovered your state of the heart, please go over to bethbell.me and take the short state of the heart assessment. Find out, how is your heart doing? And before we jump into today's questions, I would love to know your color. Like, what is the color of your heart? Drop it in the comments. Are you purple? Are you orange? Are you red? Are you broken? It's always nice to know exactly where listeners are. Okay, let's get started and jump into today's question. Let's see here. I got to pull them up. Okay, so question number 1. Hang on. Why do I keep ending up in relationships where one person holds all the power? What's coming is that you are not holding your own power. And so you're attracting people who are willing to take power from you or overpower you. So there's a big lesson there and also a nuance there, because sometimes it's not so obvious that this power play is happening. Now, this person definitely sees that, there's one person that always is holding that control. And what's also coming, and it may be specific to you or it might be for the collective, is that sometimes there is that relationship with other masculine figures in your life. Now, it doesn't always have to be your father, yes, of course, or your mother, but there's that ancestral lineage aspect of it. But if we kind of fast forward and we go to even the playground as a child, there's power plays that happen and psychological games that get played, certainly without evil intention, without necessarily manipulation, but oftentimes the kids on the playground, the bullies, they're bullying because of something that they're experiencing at their home. So I'm getting for you that it might be something like this. Maybe it's not coming from a parental relationship. Maybe it's coming from something that happened to you when you were really young, because when we're really young, and it goes on forever, we want to fit in. I mean, there's an element of us, even the most empowered, confident people still want to be, in general, liked by other people. Like, we still want to be in some level of community, and it's not about confidence. So I think for you, I'm feeling really specifically that this question is not about you not being confident in your power. There's just a leaky bit to your psyche and to your energy system where you're allowing people to take that power play over you. And it's probably something I'm tuning into it, and it feels like it's like you gave your power away at some point really young, either to someone on the playground, just using that to just get us back to like way back, or a parental situation, which I'm not necessarily feeling for you, but for a lot of people that is the case, where you've given something away in order to receive or earn their love. And so it's just a pattern. And the good news is that we can release these patterns. The first step is obviously that awareness, which you have. And so now it's really feeling into, now, I don't know if you're married or if you're single and you're dating, whatever that situation is. And the reason why that changes a little bit is that if you're dating, then you have an opportunity to attract new people. Now, if you're in a marriage and you're feeling like you have that power play, then that might be a little bit different scenario. But I'm feeling like this because you say, why do I keep ending up in relationships where one person holds all the power? I'm sort of feeling into the dating scene for you. And that means that you are actively giving this away because of something you learned about love, probably very young. It could have been your first romance, but it's usually something very, very young in our psyche, because it's it's not nice to give our power away. It doesn't feel great to feel controlled by someone else, or to not be seen, or to not be heard. And so I think that that's a really good place to start with the awareness, is just saying, let me observe myself. Let me just tune in a little bit closer, and without judgment, because I know sometimes we can get really hard on ourselves, especially when we're on this spiritual awakening journey. We really want to get the lessons. We really want to move on. And so sometimes we're hard on ourselves. And so what I'm going to recommend is that you sit and look at the last 5 relationships, and look at the very beginning of the relationship when you first met them. And what was it that attracted you to them? Was it romantic chemistry? Were they kissable? Was it that they had something intellectually stimulating for you? Was it that they, and I don't mean this in the truest sense, but paid the bill? Like, did they do something that made you feel really cared for? Because I think what you're going to get to is what your love language is. And when you start to identify, like, what is it that makes you feel cared for and loved and adored by someone else, it's going to start to give you some clues as to, why am I attracting this person? And then get into, what are their characteristics? Like, what is it that they did that made you really feel like, hey, I want to spend more time with this person. I want to be with this person. I want to, share my life with this person in whatever way that is, whether it's dating or long term. And then when we start to really feel into that, you're going to start to see even more of the dynamics at play. And then you get to make the choices of what you want to keep, and what you say, okay, this isn't serving me. Like, when I fell into this relationship and I fell madly in love with this person because whatever that ... is, then start to look at it from a observational standpoint, from a higher level standpoint. And I'm reiterating that in a sense because I don't want you to go into the judgment of it. It's so easy to beat ourselves up for the patterns because we're tired of them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the show. We wouldn't be talking. We wouldn't be here. And you wouldn't be in a power play struggle. So really identify within you, what is it that makes your heart tick? And then just have more awareness around that the next time you meet someone. Now, if you're in a relationship, you can also use this technique with other people. Like when maybe you're starting a new job, or you're in a new department, or you're in a new community, or you've entered into a new circle of friends. You can still look for this theme in all of those situations to help you heal back to wholeness, to help you really bring that power back in. And when you start looking at, what are the dynamics at play? What am I doing? What am I saying? How am I acting? Where am I giving my power away? Sometimes it's those words. Like, I did this not that long ago. It's just coming to me, so I have to bring the memory back. But I just did something where I said something with power, and then I said, or maybe that doesn't resonate for you, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but I just remembered hearing myself go, hey, like, you're only saying that because you want them to feel better. And just stick with what it is that you're feeling, share it. And having that empathy and compassion is listening to what it is. So I wanted to, and I don't mean the truest sense fit in, I just didn't want to be pushed out. Sometimes when we're more expanded and we have different ideas that are against the grain of the collective, that we kind of want to say something and then go, oh, okay. And I don't do that very often, but I have done it, and I have recently done it. And so I had to really just tune in and say, no, that's not where I need to be. I don't need to make people feel comfortable. In fact, oftentimes when we make people feel uncomfortable, we make the biggest impact and the biggest shift, not because we're trying to shift them, but because we're so convicted in a positive way in what it is that our mission is, what it is that our purpose is, what it is that our expanded states of consciousness brings to humanity. So I know I kind of went big there on that, but I think it's such an important question because I think we all give our power away in certain situations at certain times. And just having that awareness is really going to help you to not keep attracting these power play people. So hopefully that's helpful. I always love to hear in the comments. Thank you, Heart Traveler, for the purple heart. I see that. I would love to know in your words, what does purple heart mean? It makes me think of, the Purple Heart Award that we get, like brave, hero. So if that's what it means, I love that it came just before this question, because I think that's what we're here to do, is to be the hero of our own hearts and to really bring in the essence of, love and light and the duality. And something's coming to me. I'm hesitating to say it, and I'll tell you what it is. When I started talking about the Purple Heart, it's all about community and connection, and it's about finding roads together, and the red and the blue makes purple. And so I think even from, dare I say, a political standpoint, which I don't like to talk about here just because I'm apolitical in so many ways, and I just think politics are such a distraction from awakening and from what's happening. There's, good discussions that can come of it, but there's also just a lot of wasted time that comes of it. So thank you for the Purple Heart. It just gave a little bit more for me to say there, and wanting really for us to build that community and connection. And I think we need to do that through our heroed heart, us being in our true self, us being in our confidence, us being in our beauty, our power, our purpose, and our passions ultimately. Okay, let's jump in. Okay, feeling mostly settled in balance of masculine, feminine energies. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I love that perspective too. I really like that. Just to be in that nice balance of giving and receiving, and that's really where unconditional love sits, is in that equality of giving and receiving, which is also the opposite of the power play, and exactly what we're talking about here on today's show, where we're wanting to get to. Okay, let's jump into question number 2. How can money affect the balance of love, and how do I navigate that? Okay, so the balance of love and money, I don't think money has anything to do with love. Love is love. Love comes from a place deeply within you, unconditional, pure love. Now, I think it gets confused all the time with romantic love and with, what's the word? With infatuation kind of love, which then turns into love of someone's characteristics, which none of this has to be bad. I'm not positioning it as that, but we start to love aspects about people. And that's another kind of love. So I think at the core, like the deep, true, pure love, money has absolutely nothing to do with it. In fact, I've seen people be super poor. I've seen people in India. I've seen people in Bali. I've seen people all around the world have zero money and have more love in their hearts than a lot of people who have a lot of money. So I think that's, I don't want to say it's obvious, but I do kind of want to say it's obvious, because when we're on this journey, we just know the value and the power of love and connection, and loving ourselves and being anchored in a vibration that doesn't have to do with the external world. Now, I know money is necessary for a lot of things. It's necessary to pay your mortgage, to pay your bills, to survive. So I'm not discounting that, but I'm just saying that when we start to even ask ourselves that question of the balance of money affecting love, then I think we're already kind of wobbled over to the other side. And if we're loving someone because of money, if we're loving someone because of their wealth financially, or their popularity perhaps, or their celebrity status, oftentimes that's what comes through for us, is witnessing other people in a power play that's being witnessed by a lot of other people. And so that can come in like with entertainment and celebrities, literally, that we feel like, oh my God, we love this person. Well, you love the archetype of their personality. You're not necessarily in love with them. You are in love with an idea about them. And what that means for you is that those aspects that you love about that person that's representing this character are aspects that you either love about yourself or that you want to cultivate more of in yourself. So I know that's not the question here. I know that it's like someone probably in a romantic relationship and that money is affecting the balance of love. But I don't think that that is the focus that you need to take about a balancing of money and love, because there's nothing to balance here. You either love unconditionally, genuinely, or you don't. And if you don't, then you're in a really slippery slope, because there is no money that is worth false love, fake love. I don't know why the word pompous love comes in. I don't even know why that would come through. So really feel into your heart, like, where am I at with love? And I have a feeling, and don't get mad at me for saying this, but I have a feeling that there's something in there about self-love. Because I say that like that because I feel like you already have so much self-love, but there's something else in there. And maybe the word is self-worth. Maybe it's more about having self-worth, that you are somehow identifying with an aspect of financial wealth or money. And I know you're not even saying wealth here, you're just saying money. It could be that you're arguing over a $20 dinner. I remember early, okay, you know what? Another example is coming. I remember very early on in my marriage, we were both really working hard to start getting our whole dream plan and our white picket fence together. And we were really conservative about money we were spending. And there was a bit of a power play that was happening there. And I remember one day taking $20 out of the ATM. It was just like a low moment. It wasn't that things were going bad. It was just that there was homes being purchased. There was expenses that were happening. And we were really not going to get ourselves into any kind of debt. We didn't want to have credit card bills. Like, I'm still a huge advocate of paying off your credit card every single month. If you don't have the money, don't buy it. And I just remember one time I had to go put the $20 that I took out of the ATM back in. So that's an example of not money and balancing love. I mean, like, yeah, at that point I was really frustrated because I was actually making significant money, and I had to like really control, and $20, we're talking $20. I really had to control that whole money aspect and control myself of having some resentment towards my husband at the time. This was many, many years ago, been divorced for many years, but it was a little bit of that balancing act that I think you're talking about. And so I wanted to come back to the question and be more specific about a situation like this, where you're actually then having those conversations about money so that it doesn't impact your loving relationship, not your love for someone, because deep down you still love them, but your reaction to their action, I think, is really where this balancing comes in. That would be helpful for you to feel into, what is my response to this, and what is my responsibility in really feeling into how I treat the other person that has some kind of money concern, some kind of, and is it for my highest good? And sometimes it is. And in that case, it was not that big of a deal. And I don't even know why Spirit's bringing that through, but it's bringing it through just to give the example of, yeah, we can be in very loving relationships and still love the person and still have these balanced, loving discussions about how we navigate and manage money. So it comes back to just true hardcore communication. And the reason why I feel like hardcore comes out is that there's a lot of hidden beliefs. There's a lot of subconscious programming that goes into our belief around money. In fact, there's a book that I recently heard about, and I have it somewhere here. I'd love to promote it. It's called Love Money, Money Loves Me. And it's all about the energy of money. And we know this to be true. It's not woo-woo, actually. It's not spiritual. It's just understanding how money can impact us physically and mentally, and how we go about navigating it. Louise Hay, famous spiritual advisor, she had Hay House Publishing. She's been passed now for many years. She had a theory that I think is very true, that if we took all the money in the world and we gave each person individually an equal amount of money, that her prediction was within 6 months, all the money would be back in the hands of the people who were wealthy before. The people who were poor didn't have any, because it's an energy that we exude. So there's lots of deeper stuff in the money thing. So have that hardcore conversation with the one that you love, because you can really start to understand what some of the hidden stuff is through those tiny little examples of $20 out of an ATM that created some disparity and some strife for me at that time, way back when. So hopefully that's helpful. I think it's a beautiful opportunity to really get into some deep discussion with others in our lives when we can talk about money. All right, I'd love to hear what you think on that. You guys are awfully quiet on the live today. All right, let's jump into the next question though. Why do I sometimes shrink around strong partners? Okay, let me start. Why do I sometimes shrink around strong partners even though I'm powerful myself? Because there's archetypes of the other person that is really being reflected to you, that is putting you into this place of your own questioning. What comes is that it's the mind that's questioning, and the mind is in the driver's seat, and you really want to get that soul in the driver's seat. You really want to get like who you really are in the driver's seat, as opposed to letting people around you, those strong partners, do the power play. And when they do this, you have a choice. You have a choice to either be the victim, which is sometimes an easy thing to say, well, they did that to me, or they're being blah, blah, blah to me. And yet it's such an incredible opportunity to, I don't like the word push through, but that's what's coming. And I think what it means is really to endeavor through what it is that other person is reflecting to you, like the really deeper nuance of what is it that's causing, that deeper strife, that reflection of you be strong in you, even in the face of me being strong. Kind of ties back in a way to the first question, where we talked about like bullies on the playground, and how people with conviction, whether it's, truth or not truth, or right or wrong, or however you want to judge it, that it's the conviction, it's the passion, it's the drive, it's the innate belief in themselves that brings forward that power. I mean, we see this in, like, let's just use the archetype of narcissists, or maybe a sociopath even. They are successful oftentimes because they believe so wholeheartedly in themselves. They believe in what they're doing. They've got a distorted program, lots of distorted programs in many cases, but they believe so much in themselves that they can just persevere. I mean, we have someone in a very high political position that's showing us a very, very important lesson for all of us. Not because I agree with the way, but when we see someone that has a level of tenacity and belief in themselves, it makes it really clear that anything is possible if we anchor in to who we really are and what our passions really are. And I wholeheartedly believe that if we took that one template, not how it happens, but that one template of strength and power and conviction from within, and all, whatever you want to call yourself, light worker, way shower, healer, guide, if we did that overnight, the planet would change. But instead, there's a lot of, I'm just going to say, maybe darker figures, darker people, darker energies that are still in this power play. And, there's that phrase that's coming through. It's a biblical phrase, and I don't mean to get religious, because that's not really where I'm at on this show. But the phrase, the meek will inherit the earth. And, there was so many years where I feel like I had misinterpreted that particular phrase, thinking like meek was weak, when meek was actually strong and powerful, and so powerful that they are actually in their being state and their knowing state. And that's what we're here to do on our spiritual awakening journey, is to ascend to this level of unattachment, which doesn't mean we don't care. It means that we are so strong in our conviction of who we are and what we're here to do. And that our primary goal is to have fun. You know, you've heard me say many times, I like to call him my spiritual healer from many years ago, said, Beth, the only thing we're here to do is to be the happiest motherfuckers on earth. And so that's really where we want to anchor ourselves is, am I having fun? Am I doing fun things? And I'm speaking to myself when I say this, because a lot of times I'm very in my head. I can be very in my heart. I can be very emotionally pulled. I can be very logically pulled. But at the end of the day, it's like, where are we in that fun factor of really allowing our spirit to flow within us and to be that passion and that conviction and that beauty of spirit in our soul that we came here to express, not get so caught up in all the characters and the avatars and the archetypes of who we are. All right. I know, again, we kind of went out there a little bit, but we're coming back to, shrinking around strong partners, because we're giving their archetype, whatever it is. I don't know if you've done this work before, but many years ago, I just love Carolyn Mace. She has such incredible work that she has poured into the planet years ago, and she's still doing it today. And one of the things I loved was her archetypal work. It just really helped me understand. It's all based on Carl Jung. I shouldn't say all, but it's based on Carl Jung and the archetypes of which we play. And as we dig in, let's see if I can bring back, she suggests that there's 12 archetypes that we play more consistently in our lives. And there's four that all of us have. One is the victim archetype. And you might say, no, I'm not a victim, but the victim archetype is, everyone has that archetype. It's just a matter of whether you're playing in the light or the dark. And so that's, we want to know that balance. We want to know the duality of each of the archetypes. The second is the saboteur. Like, where are we sabotaging ourselves? And there's a light and a dark to that. And there's also the prostitute, which a lot of people want to argue, oh, I'm not a prostitute. It's like, well, no, you're not technically like a sexual prostitute per se, but you're prostituting something. There's oftentimes where we're giving something away, and that's placed into this whole power play so well. We're giving something away in return for. And so that's where, becoming the Buddha and really being in that being state is, you're not attached to it. So that giving and receiving can be really unconditional and really in flow and really in a different energy than what the prostitute is, that's programmed in all of humanity. And the fourth one is the inner child. And there's 6 different ones. I don't think I could remember them all right now off the top of my head. There's 6 different child archetypes, and each one of us have that, obviously, because it's our inner child. And where is that? Is it the magical child? Is it the nature child? Is it the wounded child? Is it the abandoned child? So there's all these different archetypes specific to the child. But when you start to identify just even those 4, if you were only to work with those 4, you would start to understand your own power dynamics, because you would start to see, am I in more of the light of this archetype, or am I more in the dark of this archetype? So I would highly recommend, if you haven't done any archetypal work, that you dive into it. I think in my link, there might be my Positive Inspiration store on Amazon. And I know I have all of Carolyn Mace's stuff in my store on Amazon. So you can check that out. And if it's in the feed below, hopefully it will be. The link, we'll put it in there. There's so many great books, so many great recommendations, but her work on archetypes is incredible. And of course, you can always just go look up Carl Jung. I just like that Carolyn actually has a little bit more, I don't even want to say new age, but I want to say modern. Modern's the word. Modern look on some of that very heavy material. So hopefully that's helpful. I love that. Okay, I want to go back to a comment that came from the last question, which is more about the money of balance and the balance of money and love. And I love hearing your comments. One of the comments is, gold is the currency of kings, silver is the currency of gentlemen, barter is the currency of common folk, and debt is the currency of slaves. Dollars represent debt. Yeah, I like that. That's a good little phrase. I don't know who wrote that, or if that's something unique to you. But thank you for commenting on that. I love that. Okay, let's go into the next question. Why do I, oh, no, that's one we already covered. How can I stand in my truth without turning everything into a battle? Yeah. And again, this one has a lot to do oftentimes with how long you've been in that relationship. Not always, because especially in light of what's happening in today's world, there's a lot of different distractions where we're expressing an opinion. A dear friend of mine brought up an opinion to me, and I had the exact opposite view of what they were saying. And I really adore them. I like them, and they like me. And I said, I have to tell you, I am actually on the opposite spectrum of what you just said. And I said, and I'm totally okay if you have a judgment against me or you view me differently at this point, but I'm still me, I'm still myself, and I'm still exactly where I'm at in my knowingness and my light. And everyone's truth is through their own lens and in their own way, they see the world. And so I think that comes in here when we feel sometimes like, well, should I say my truth when I know that the person in front of me either doesn't agree with it or I don't know where they're at? So that could be like the stranger scenario, or, a non-romantic love relationship. And I say, stand in your truth. Again, it links back to one of the previous questions, where I really think that if we're in that template of loving ourselves, knowing our beliefs, our passion, our purpose, standing up for it and speaking it out there, despite what others, yes, of course, we're going to use discernment, but despite what others are going to think, because that's the filter of which we often stop ourselves from saying things. Well, I don't want to cause a problem. I mean, I'm definitely more of a mediator type person. I like to kind of help smooth things out, see both sides, do the views, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's another one of the archetypes. It's just a matter of when I'm speaking from my truth, from my center, how is that actually coming through? Am I speaking it with conviction? Am I speaking it from a grounded place, or am I wobbling a little bit? Energetically, tonality in my voice, because I'm not sure what's going to happen. And I like to think that I speak quite grounded from where I'm at, but not always, because sometimes there's things that are pulling on me. And so let's kind of shift that over into the more romantic relationship, because that's when the heartstrings are involved. It's like, it's not that unless you're a sociopath, which none of you are, you are tugged with someone else's feelings. You do want to typically have not mediation, but you want to find points of agreement, not those points of differences. And if you're with someone, here's a really important thing. If you're with someone who just wants to find the points of disagreement, move on, because that is a power play right there. They just want to create a dynamic where you're constantly defending your view. And when we're constantly, sometimes we have to, but when we're constantly defending our view, it's demeaning, it's not helpful, it pulls us back, it makes it more challenging, it takes our energy, it takes our power, it takes our light, ever so slightly, oftentimes, but it all adds up, and it builds, and it creates a dynamic of power that we don't even know oftentimes it's happening. It's creating an unhealthy balance of being able to speak our truth and to stand in that truth and to be seen for that truth, be honored for that truth. I think that's a big part of it, is that find people, whether it's romantic, whether it's work, whether it's community, find people that aren't necessarily like 100% on your side. Like, you believe everything I believe, no, because I think having the discussion is super important of different beliefs, but that you're in a supportive place where people are open to hearing your view, open to considering, what are the points of agreement in our views? Not just pick out the points of, this is where we disagree. And, there's so much, I want to say ancestral programming, but also cultural programming with this topic. And I'm hesitating myself now. It's so interesting because I'm talking about standing in your truth, and now I'm hesitating saying something because I know that there's always a little bit of with some of these topics. But what's coming through is that when I worked in big pharma for many years, and I actually really enjoyed what I did, I felt like I was really making a difference in women's lives. I worked for a big company that was based in Germany. And what I started to realize is, because I used to think like, oh, the wall, that's so far, so long ago. Oh, Hitler, that's so long ago. All of those things feel so long ago. And yet they're not long ago at all. They're still in generations and ancestrally and in our DNA. There's still these ideas. And so why that's coming forward was a quick story. I was at a dinner with some colleagues and German colleagues in Berlin. And I remember them talking about the Berlin Wall. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that was like the year my brother graduated from high school. I'm like, that is so not that long ago. And what the person talked about was how much they were telling on each other. They were, to the Gestalt. Am I getting that right? And how that became very ingrained to self-police, to pick on others, to and if there's anyone watching here that has a comment and feels that they have more insights on this, I'm always happy to hear it too. But it was my personal experience that as I sat there with this really beautiful person, that I realized, wow, like this kind of tattletale telling is still so alive. And so culturally, they were rewarded for that. They were rewarded for telling on their neighbor that was not following the rules, or that was trying to escape, or, cross the border, or do something that was not within the rules. So I guess why that comes forward is that it's alive and well, that is oftentimes, and we don't have to come from German descent. And I'm not picking on the Germans. I'm just using it as a cultural example, because every culture has an example similar or different, it can be different, but I mean similar in the sense of the strength that it brings to the collective consciousness. And it just weaves in, so nuanced, because people aren't talking about that. They're not thinking about that. They're not, oh gosh, they're doing this behavior because of blah, blah, blah. So, and that's also why I love family constellation work, is that it gets into these cultural ancestral programs. Now, I know that we kind of went off a little bit, but I'm saying that again because that we're talking about standing in our truth. And so stand in your truth, find your truth, and stay in your conviction of your truth. Stay out of the what are other people doing that we want to point out and say is bad or good or with the rules or against the rules, because that's not helping humanity move forward. It's a lower vibrational energy that's making a judgment. Yes, it mixes in with your truth. Yes, it mixes in with your ideals about, what you would like to see utopia be for humanity. But it's not going to get you anywhere to make those comparisons. So standing in your truth without a battle is also finding and choosing and making choices to be with people who can stand with you in that higher vibration of the things that you talk about. One last thing that's coming. I don't know the phrase exactly, but it's something about, the people who talk about others, are on a very low vibration. The people who talk about themselves are on a different vibration. And then it's like the people, I know I'm totally messing this one up, but, the people who are talking about love and about bigger topics, expanded states of consciousness, are really here in the highest vibration of love and light. And so just ask yourself, when I'm in my social groups, am I in a group that's just wanting to talk about other people? Am I in a group that people just want to talk about themselves? Or am I in a group where they want to talk about things that are helpful for community and love and opening our hearts and being in that incredible place? I think that's really the question. And stand in your truth and find supportive people to help you stand in your truth. So when you do come into a situation, where you're up against a lot of naysayers, you're up against people who maybe aren't in the same expanded state of consciousness, that you can still shine the light for them without getting into a deeper discussion, an argument, and or battle, as you say. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Heart Traveler. You just gave me the quote or the phrase comes from people, talking about themselves, events, and concepts. So yeah, let's talk about concepts. Let's talk about conscious awakening concepts. All right. And that's why I started my fireside chat. So if you are feeling alone in your own community, wherever it is you live, buy yourself a little fire pit. Or if you don't have one or you can't, just put some chairs out and have a fireside chat in your living room with the current furniture you have. Invite people over, one conversation, and stay really centered in an expanded conversation that isn't about others. And you'll start to build that community, and you'll start to see how your behaviors change when you're out in the wild west world here. Okay, let's jump in and get to the next question. And I appreciate all your comments here. Okay. Why do I attract controlling partners? Now, I think this is definitely going back into some of the other questions. And so I would like to just ask the person, I know they may not be with me live here, but when you say controlling partners, controlling in what way? In what way are they controlling you? I think if you get into identifying what's the definition of control for you, you're going to start to see some of the threads for yourself. And it's because you're not in your own power, like just a really big clumping statement. You're hesitant to be in your power. And the question for you is why? Not for blame, but for understanding what is it, what's the program, what's the thread, what's the pattern that is holding me back from really just being in my own conviction. When I say conviction, it doesn't mean that you have to go and shout it out off the mountaintops. It doesn't mean that. It means that you are sometimes very quiet and you are that more meek person, but that the power is within. The young gentleman, I think his name is Charlie Kirk, that was just assassinated. I don't have a lot of details. I didn't know the man. I didn't know anything about him before this happened. I still don't really know much. All I know is that he was a very loud voice for a topic. And he was killed for that. And so I think that's also such an interesting and powerful, without getting into the details of him specifically, a very powerful example of how a lot of individuals who are really deeply on their spiritual awakening journey have a hard time sometimes really standing in their power, because we've all been burned at the stake or stoned in the square or drowned for our gifts and for our voice and for our unique way of looking at the world. It doesn't mean that he was right, and it doesn't mean that he was wrong. But it's really unfortunate that we can't continue to have our own voice without being assassinated for it. And so I think that's such a powerful example for all of us to find a way to figure out what works for us. It may not be going on this big platform. It may be the words that you say to the barista, to the waiter or the waitress, to the people in our community. It might be that is the power of which you bring your beauty into the world. It doesn't always have to be on a big platform. And God bless the people who do go on the big platforms, whether we agree with them or not, but that they're willing to really stick their neck out, to really be in their power, to really be in their conviction to share their own views with the world. And isn't that, I guess, what America is built on, is to be able to have the freedom to express and say what it is that you believe and what your truth is. So let's try to stop having so much judgment against other people's truth and spend more time being in our truth and being in the power of who we are and what we're here to do on planet Earth in this lifetime. And I think when we anchor there, then we don't have to worry about all these other controlling people, because there's nothing to be controlled. You're just in your power. You're not even, it's not even a word in your vocabulary. All right, hopefully that's helpful. I always love to hear your comments. So even if you're watching on replay, please tune in. Give me your thoughts on that. Oh, we're down to the hour. I'm going to do one quick one. Okay, is it possible to have a relationship with equal power? Absolutely. And again, I think it kind of goes back to all the questions that have been answered now, that there is an equality in giving and receiving, masculine and feminine. It doesn't mean man and woman, but the masculine, feminine energies, having that balance, having the awareness. But it's also about being with people who want to have the awareness. A lot of people are so numb, so in their head, so in their, this is the way it is. It's not going to change. I don't want to change. This is more comfortable if it just stays the same. And I'm just saying, you can easily move away from people who are in this place of not wanting to give and receive ideas, whatever it is, money, compliments, fill your cup, right? So it's all that. And so it absolutely is possible. And yeah, sometimes it takes a little digging. Some people find this equality in a relationship early on. They marry their high school sweetheart. So we don't have to put time or difficulty or lack of conscious men and women or whatever the stories are. We all have them. I have mine. But they're out there, and it's about lining up with that equality within ourselves. And I think it all goes all the way back to the first comment about, yeah, really being in that purple heart, that hero heart, and being in that masculine, feminine energy within ourselves. Because when we do, we have so much to offer the world and so much less reaction to the reflection that others are projecting onto us. Okay, with that, I just want to say, if you want to work more closely, you might have something heavy, heavy, heavy on your heart, or just twisting up your mind. I'd love to work with you. You can go to bethbell.me. The community page is an easy one to get to book sessions. I'll do a 30-minute private question session with you. You can do 1-hour sessions. And if you're really in a state of heartbreak, heartache, could be an old heartbreak, could be a new one, or maybe you're just in a big life transition. Or maybe you just know that there is a soul's calling that is so deep within you, and you just want that trusted confidant that can help you, that can guide you, that can walk this journey with you. Please apply for the VIP monthly program. As an intuitive soul advisor, I love helping people who are really walking this journey, awakening and ascending. And sometimes it can feel like a really lonely journey. So I would love to hear from you if that's where you're at. And there's also the Awaken Inner Wisdom membership. Please don't forget, if you're interested in being in that community of people and really wanting to have higher vibe discussions, which was one of the topics in the earlier questions, apply for the membership. We're going to be starting that again this fall. And it's such a great place to have communion with other like-minded souls and to really elevate and to talk about things that just help us expand and be in that giving and receiving in that beautiful and powerful place within ourselves. All right. Each week, I so love that you're with me here live. And if you're watching on replay, I love that as well. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. It so helps. And I look forward to seeing you again next week, every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And until then, I'm wishing you so much bliss and joy and love in your life. Namaste.